The market was loud that morning, the way it always was. Tomatoes piled high on wooden tables. The smell of dried fish and fresh pepper in the air. Women calling out prices. Children darting between legs. Life moves the way it always moved in Eek Market, fast, noisy, and without apology. But then one voice cut through all of it. Sharp. Cold. Deliberate. Look at this one. My own niece. Sitting in the dirt with wilting vegetables like a common beggar. Every head turned. Standing in the middle of the market, dressed in a wrapper of deep burgundy and gold, her neck heavy with jewelry, was Madame Gloria. She was a big woman, not just in size, but in the way she filled a space. People moved aside when she walked. Traders greeted her first. She was the kind of woman who had decided, a long time ago, that money made her better than other people. And standing before her, holding a small basket of tomatoes and garden eggs, was Adise. She was young. Her dress was clean but faded. Her sandals were worn thin at the heel. Her eyes were calm, too calm for someone being humiliated in front of 100 people. She said nothing. She simply stood there and absorbed it, the way a tree absorbs rain, without complaint, without collapse. The market watched. Madame Gloria was not finished. She never finished quickly. That was her way. Once she started, she needed the crowd. She needed the witnesses. Shame, she believed, was only useful when other people could see it. For years, she said loudly, turning to look at the traders around her. For years this girl has been sitting in this same spot. Same basket. Same vegetables. Same nothing. Is this not embarrassing? Is this not a disgrace to our family name? A few traders looked away. Some whispered behind their hands. One woman near the yam stall shook her head slowly but said nothing. Adise's fingers tightened around the handle of her basket. Just slightly. No one noticed except the woman selling pepper beside her, old Mama Chioma, who had watched this happen before and always felt the same helpless ache in her chest when it did. Gloria, Mama Chioma said softly. Leave the child alone. Madame Gloria turned to her with eyes like hot coals. Did I ask you? Did I ask anyone? I am talking to my family. Stay in your place. Mama Chioma pressed her lips together and looked down at her pepper. Adise still had not spoken. She was looking at a fixed point just past her aunt's shoulder, somewhere far away, somewhere peaceful, somewhere the words could not reach her. What Madame Gloria did next was the thing people talked about for weeks. She pointed. Not with her whole hand. With one finger. Aimed directly at Adise's feet. Look at those sandals, she said. The market went very quiet. Look at them. Torn. Cracked. My brother's daughter, my own blood, walking around this market looking like she begs for coins. It is a shame. It is a shame on all of us. She then looked down at her own shoes. Gold-strapped, polished, imported. She said nothing more about them. She did not need to. The contrast was already doing its work. Adise looked down. Not in defeat, or at least, she tried to make it look that way. But the truth was that looking down was the only thing she could do to stop the tears from falling in public. She had promised herself, a long time ago, that she would never let Gloria see her cry. That was the one thing she could control. But it was hard. It was hard when 50 people were watching. It was hard when the woman doing this shared her blood. It was hard when she remembered that once, a long time ago, before money changed everything, this same woman had braided her hair by lamplight and called her, my sister's beautiful child. That woman is gone now. Only Gloria remained. He arrived the way strangers sometimes do, quietly, without announcement, as if the market had simply produced him from its own noise. He was well dressed. Not the flashy kind of well-dressed that shouts for attention, but the kind that speaks softly and makes you look twice. His shirt was simple but pressed. His shoes were polished. He carried a small leather bag over one shoulder and walked with the easy confidence of a man who had nothing to prove to anyone. He had been making his way through the market toward the provision stalls when the sound of Gloria's voice stopped him. He turned. He saw the crowd gathered in a loose circle. He saw the woman in gold speaking loudly. He saw the young woman in the faded dress standing very still, head slightly bowed, clutching her basket like it was the last solid thing in the world. He stood there and watched for a moment. His jaw tightened. He had seen many things in his life: boardrooms, back alleys, hospitals, and hunger. He had sat in expensive offices and on bare floors. He had been celebrated and he had been invisible. But something about this particular scene reached inside him and pulled. He set his bag down slowly against a nearby table. He straightened his shirt. And he began to walk toward them. "Madam." The voice was calm. Not loud. Not angry. Just firm, the way a closed door is firm. Not hostile, just immovable. Madame Gloria turned around with the expression of someone who was not used to being interrupted. The man stood a few feet away. He was looking at her with steady eyes. Not rude eyes. Not aggressive eyes. Just, steady. Like someone who had decided something and could not be talked out of it. "Madam," he said again. "That is no way to speak to your own." Gloria stared at him. "Excuse me. Who are you?" "Someone passing through," he said simply. "But I have ears. And what I heard is not something I could walk past." The market was very quiet now. The kind of quiet where even the flies seemed to pause. Gloria drew herself up to full height. "I don't know who you think you are, but this is a family matter. You have no business here." The man glanced at Adiz briefly. She was looking at him now, confused, uncertain, her tears held just barely in place. He looked back at Gloria. "A family matter," he repeated slowly. Then he nodded, as if considering it. "You may be right. But I think I will stay a little while longer, if you don't mind." Gloria's eyes narrowed. The crowd leaned in. To understand why Madame Gloria hated her niece the way she did, you had to go back. Not far. Just 15 years. Two sisters had grown up in the same small compound in Agueda, Gloria and Ngozi. Same mother. Same father. Same dirt floors and shared plates of EBA. As children they had been close, the way poor children often are, pressed together by necessity and love. But life pulled them in different directions. Ngozi, the younger one, was gentle and quiet. She married a man she loved. A schoolteacher with more kindness than money. They had one daughter. They named her Adiz, meaning daughter of kings. Then Ngozi got sick. The illness came slowly and then all at once, the way serious things often do. Within 2 years of Adiz's birth, Ngozi was gone. She left behind a husband with a small salary, a broken heart, and a little girl who looked exactly like her. Gloria, by then, had married a wealthy trader. Her compound had concrete floors. Her children wore shoes to school. When Ngozi's husband also died a few years later, the village elders brought Adiz to Gloria. "She is your sister's child," they said. "She has no one else." Gloria took her in. But she never forgave Ngozi for leaving the child behind. Adiz grew up in Gloria's house the way a seed grows in the wrong soil, alive, but struggling. She was not beaten. She was not starved. But she was not loved either, and a child always knows the difference. Love has a smell, a temperature, a specific kind of attention. And in that big compound, surrounded by cousins who had their mother's warmth, Adiz grew up in the cold. She woke early and swept the compound before the others rose. She fetched water, helped in the kitchen, washed dishes without being asked. She did these things not because she was told to, but because she had learned quickly that being useful was the closest she could get to being wanted. She went to the community school in worn-out shoes and borrowed pencils. She came first in her class for 3 years. No one in Gloria's house mentioned it. When she turned 17, Gloria told her plainly, "I have done my duty by you. Now you must do it for yourself." Adise was given a small stall at the market and a starting stock of vegetables bought on credit. That was it. That was her inheritance. She thanked Gloria, swallowed whatever she felt, and went to the market the next morning before sunrise to set up her stall. She had been there every day since. Madame Gloria had not always been this way. That is the thing about pride, it does not arrive fully formed. It grows slowly, fed by small victories and untested fears. When Gloria's husband, Chief Okafor, first struck oil in his transport business, the money came fast. New cars. A bigger compound. Trips to Lagos. Children in private schools. And with the money came attention. People who had once ignored Gloria now greeted her at the gate. Church members saved her a front row seat. Market traders gave her discounts without being asked. The village elders mentioned her husband's name with respect. Gloria tasted this and found it very sweet. But sweetness, when it becomes the only flavor a person wants, turns them dangerous. She stopped remembering where she came from. She stopped seeing the people who had nothing as people at all. They became, in her mind, proof of something, proof that she was different, that she had risen, that she was no longer one of them. And Adise, poor, quiet, patient Adise, was the most uncomfortable proof of all. Because every time Gloria looked at her niece, she saw her sister Ngozi. She saw the life she had escaped. She saw the dirt floors and the shared plates and the years before the money. And she could not bear it. The market had its own memory. Mama Chioma, who had sold pepper in Eek Market for 30 years, could tell you everything that had happened in that space and between those stalls. Who married who? Who cheated who? Who rose and who fell? The market saw it all. And the market had watched Adise for years. It had watched her arrive before dawn and arrange her tomatoes and garden eggs with quiet care. It had watched her give a small discount to the woman with the crying baby and the empty purse. It had watched her share her lunch with the old blind man who wandered through every Tuesday. It had also watched her endure Gloria. Every visit. Every cutting remark. Every pointed finger. Every loud comparison. The traders talked among themselves about it, the way market people do, in low voices, in side glances, in the slow shaking of heads. That woman should be ashamed, old Baba Emeka from the yam stall would say. She will collect her reward one day, Mama Chioma would reply. God sees, another woman would add. And then they would go back to their selling, because life in the market did not pause for other people's pain. But they noticed. They always noticed. And on this particular morning, standing there watching the well-dressed stranger face Gloria with calm, steady eyes, they felt something stir in their chests. Something like hope. There was a Tuesday, 4 years earlier, that Adise almost never talked about. It had been a slow market day. The sky was overcast. Customers were few. By midday, Adise had sold almost nothing and her stomach was reminding her that she had skipped breakfast to save money. Then she saw him. A man was slumped against the wall near the entrance of the market. Not sleeping, collapsed. His clothes were dusty and too big for his thin frame. His lips were dry. His eyes, when they opened briefly, were sunken and confused. People walked past him. Some looked. Most didn't. Adise closed her stall, walked over, and crouched beside him. "Can you hear me?" she asked. He nodded slowly. She went back to her stall, brought her only bottle of water and the small wrap of bread she had been saving for dinner. She helped him sit up. She gave him the water first, then the bread, breaking it into pieces so he could manage it slowly. He was too weak to speak much. She sat with him for an hour, until the color came back to his face. "Thank you," he finally said. His voice was hoarse. "I have not eaten in 2 days." "Rest," she said simply. She did not ask his name. She did not ask where he was from. She simply stayed until she was sure he would not fall again. Then she went back to her stall. Back in the present, the stranger was still standing his ground. Madame Gloria had tried twice more to dismiss him. Both times he had simply waited her out, politely, patiently, like a man who had all the time in the world and was not afraid of any of it. The crowd had grown. Word had traveled through the stalls the way market word always does, fast, whispered, unstoppable. People had left their tables and drifted closer, pretending to browse but really just watching. Gloria turned to Adiz. "Do you know this man? Did you send someone to embarrass me in public?" Adiz shook her head. "No, Auntie. I have never seen him before." Gloria looked at the stranger. "She doesn't even know you. So what exactly is your business here?" "I know her," the man said. He spoke quietly but every single person in the crowd heard every word. "Even if she doesn't remember me." A small murmur moved through the gathered people. Adiz looked at him again. Really looked this time. There was something, a shape to his face, a quality in his eyes, that felt familiar in the way old songs feel familiar. You cannot say where you heard them, but somewhere in your body, you remember. She frowned slightly. "She has been nothing but kind her entire life," the stranger continued. "And she deserves to be treated like it." Gloria's expression hardened. "Mind your business." "This is my business," he said simply. "More than you know." "Do you know me, madam?" The stranger's voice was still calm. Still patient. But there was something beneath it now, something weighty, like a river that looks still on the surface but is moving hard underneath. Gloria looked him over. The pressed shirt. The polished shoes. The leather bag. The kind of man whose face you might have seen in a newspaper or at the top table of an important dinner. She did not know him. But something in her chest tightened. "I don't know you," she said. Slightly less confident than before. "I didn't think so," he said. He looked at the crowd, then back at her. "But your niece knows me. Or she will, when I remind her." He turned to Adiz then, fully, the way you turn to someone you have been waiting a long time to see. "4 years ago," he said. "A Tuesday. Slow market day. I collapsed near the entrance of this market. 2 days without food. I was on my way to find work in the east and I had nothing left." Adiz's hand moved slowly to her mouth. "Everyone walked past me," the man continued. "Everyone except one person." He paused. The market was absolutely silent. Even the wind seemed to stop. "She gave me her water. She gave me her bread. She sat with me for 1 hour until I was strong enough to stand." He looked at Adiz directly. "That person was you." The word settled over the market like morning light, slowly, and then everywhere at once. People turned to look at Adiz. Then back at the stranger. Then at Gloria. Adiz stood very still. Her eyes were filling. Not with sadness this time. With something harder to name. The man continued. "When I left that day, I had nothing. No money. No contacts. I had come to Lagos from Kano with a business idea and no capital. I had failed at 3 things already. That morning, I was ready to give up and go home." He paused. "Your niece didn't ask me anything. She didn't preach to me. She didn't ask if I deserved the food. She just gave it. She sat with me like I was a human being, like I mattered, when the rest of the world had decided I didn't. He reached into his leather bag slowly. I thought about that moment many times afterward. When things got hard. When I wanted to stop. I thought about a girl who had almost nothing and still gave what little she had without hesitation. He pulled out a small business card and held it up, not to Adiz, but to the crowd. My name is Kenneth Obi. I own 3 wholesale companies in Lagos and 1 distribution warehouse in Onitsha. And I am alive and standing here today because of a girl named Adiz who gave me bread and water when she had almost none herself. For a long moment, Adiz did not speak. She was looking at him the way you look at something you thought was lost, with disbelief and relief fighting each other behind your eyes. Kenneth, she whispered. He smiled. You remember? Yes. She pressed her hand harder against her mouth. You were wearing a gray shirt. You could not sit up at first. You broke the bread into small pieces, he said. So I could eat slowly. Something cracked open in Adiz's chest. Not painfully. The way a seed cracks open, because something inside it has finally decided to grow. She had thought about that day before. Not often. She had not done it to be remembered. She had not done it expecting anything to come back from it. She had done it because a man was suffering and she happened to be there and she had bread. That was all. That had always been all. She had never expected it to mean anything beyond that single Tuesday. And now here was this man, well-dressed, successful, steady, standing in the middle of her market, speaking her name in front of everyone who had ever whispered about her or looked past her or stepped around her like she was something to be avoided. Tears slid down her face. She did not stop them this time. Madame Gloria had gone very quiet. It was a different kind of quiet from the silence she usually commanded. Not the quiet of authority, but the quiet of someone whose ground has disappeared beneath their feet. She was looking at Kenneth Obi. At his clothes. At the business card still held between his fingers. At the way the crowd was looking at him with the kind of respect that money and character together produce. Then she looked at Adiz. Her niece's face was wet with tears. But she was standing taller now. Her shoulders, which had been slightly hunched under the weight of the morning's humiliation, had straightened, slowly, the way dignity returns when it is finally called by its name. Kenneth turned to face the crowd. I came to this market today for a routine business visit, he said. I did not plan what happened this morning. But I will not pretend I did not see it. He looked at Gloria one more time. This woman you call a disgrace. This woman in the torn sandals that you pointed at in front of everyone, she is the reason I am standing here. She did not give me her bread because I was important. She gave it to me because she was kind. And kindness like that does not forget. It just waits. He let the words settle. The market exhaled. Gloria looked at her gold jewelry. For the first time that morning, her hands felt heavy. I have been looking for a manager for my new store in this area, Kenneth said. He was speaking to Adiz now, just to her, though 50 people were listening. Someone with integrity. Someone the community trusts. Someone who understands what it means to work hard and to treat people right. He paused. I have interviewed 6 people. I have not found the right one. Adiz was looking at him with wide eyes. She was not sure she was understanding correctly. She had the expression of someone who has been standing in rain for so long that the feeling of sun on their skin does not register immediately. I am not offering you charity, Kenneth said clearly. I am offering you a job. A real job, with a proper salary, your own office, and the chance to grow. Because I believe that the kind of person who gives her last bread to a stranger is the kind of person who can be trusted to run something well. He handed her the business card. Adiz took it with both hands. The market erupted, not in shouting, but in that warm, swelling sound of many people feeling something good at the same time. Clapping. A few cheers. Old Mama Chioma pressed both hands to her cheeks and laughed. Adiz stared at the card. Her name would be on a door. She could not yet fully believe it. Madame Gloria stood at the edge of everything. The crowd's attention had shifted completely, from her to Adiz, from the humiliation to the restoration. People who had watched her point at her niece's torn sandals were now watching her niece receive a business card from a man of means. The same people who had laughed or looked away in embarrassment were now smiling and clapping. Gloria tried to smile too. It did not fit her face properly. She tried to say something gracious, something that would show the crowd that she was pleased, that she had always believed in her niece, that this moment reflected well on the family. But the words would not come. Because they were not true. And lies, even small comfortable ones, have a way of sticking in the throat when the truth is standing right in front of you. She looked at Adiz again. Her niece was not looking back at her. She was looking at the business card in her hands, reading it carefully, the way you read something you want to make sure is real. And in that moment, Madame Gloria felt something she had not felt in a very long time. Not anger. Not pride. Not the comfortable heat of superiority. She felt small. Not the small of poverty. The small of having been wrong. Loudly. Publicly. Completely. She turned and walked away from the market. Quickly. Before anyone could see her face. That evening, Gloria sat alone in her big parlor. Her husband was traveling. Her children were in their rooms. The house helper had gone home. It was just Gloria and the sound of the ceiling fan and the hum of the refrigerator and all the quiet that comes when there is no noise left to hide behind. She had not eaten. She had come home from the market, walked straight to her bedroom, changed out of her gold-wrapped outfit, and then found that she did not know what to do next. She sat. The scene in the market kept returning, not in pieces, but whole. The crowd. Kenneth's voice. Adiz's tears. The business card. The applause. And her own voice. She could hear it. Loud and clear, the way you hear yourself in a dream. Pointing at the torn sandals. Calling her own blood a disgrace. Saying the words with pleasure, with performance, with an audience. She pressed her hands together in her lap. She thought about Ngozi. Her sister who had braided her hair in hard times. Her sister who had laughed easily and loved deeply and died too young. Her sister whose child she had taken in with a roof but not a heart. What would Ngozi say if she had seen this morning? The thought was unbearable. Gloria covered her face with her hands. And for the first time in years, she cried. The next morning, before the market opened, there was a knock on Adiz's door. Adiz lived in a single room behind the main street. Small, clean, simply arranged. She had been awake for an hour already, not from her usual routine, but because sleep had not been easy. Kenneth's card was on the table beside her small lamp. She had looked at it 3 times in the night to make sure it was still there. The knock came again. She opened the door. Madame Gloria stood outside. This was not the Gloria of yesterday. That woman had gold at her throat and performance in her eyes. This woman wore a plain wrapper, no jewelry, no makeup. Her eyes were swollen. Her hands, clasped in front of her, were trembling slightly. Adiz stood in the doorway and said nothing. She was not cold. She was not smiling. She was simply waiting, the way she had waited through many things. I came, Gloria started. Then stopped. Pressed her lips together. Started again. I came because I could not sleep. Because I sat in my house last night and I could not find one argument in my own defense. Her voice broke on the last word. Adiz. What I said yesterday, she stopped again. The silence was soft this time. Not the silence of a crowd watching. Just two women standing in a doorway in the early morning, with everything between them finally out in the open. "Come inside, Auntie," Adiz said quietly. "I have tea on the stove." Gloria sat at Adiz's small table and wrapped both hands around the cup of tea the way people hold things when they need something to hold. She spoke slowly. Painfully. The way a person speaks when they are not trying to win or impress or control, just trying, finally, to be honest. She spoke about Ngozi. About how much she had loved her sister and how the grief had curdled into something ugly when Ngozi left her with a child and no instructions for how to love her without being reminded of loss. She spoke about money. How it had changed the way people saw her. How she had let it change the way she saw herself. Somewhere along the way she had confused worth with wealth and forgotten that her own beginnings were no different from Adiz. She spoke about yesterday. About the market. About the words she had said in the face of every person in the crowd as they turned away from her. And then she stopped speaking. Adiz had listened to all of it quietly, her own cup of tea held in both hands, her eyes steady. When the silence had stretched long enough, she reached across the small table and took her aunt's hands. Gloria looked up. "It is okay, Mama," Adiz said softly. She had not called her that since she was very small. Since before the money and the coldness and the years of distance. "It is okay. We are still family." Gloria's face crumpled completely. Both women cried. 3 weeks later, Adiz walked through the glass door of Kenneth's new store for her first morning of work. It was a clean, well-stocked provisions store on the main road, bright shelves, organized sections, a small office in the back with a wooden desk and a chair and a window that looked out onto the street. On the door of the office, a small nameplate had been fixed. Adiz, store manager. She stood in front of it for a long moment. She thought about the faded stall in the market. The worn sandals. The basket of tomatoes she had arranged with careful hands every single morning for years. She thought about the mornings she had walked to that stall before sunrise, in the rain, in the harmattan wind, with nothing but will. She touched the nameplate gently. Then she straightened her back, walked into the office, sat down at the desk, and began. She did not transform overnight into someone different. She was still Adiz, quiet, patient, careful, warm. But now those qualities had a stage. A proper one. Customers noticed quickly. Word spread fast. The store manager who greeted people by name. Who stayed late to help an elderly customer carry her bags. Who kept the shelves perfectly arranged. Kenneth visited at the end of the first week and stood at the door of the store watching her work. He nodded slowly, satisfied. He had made the right call. The following Saturday, Adiz returned to Eek Market. Not to sell. Not because she had to. But because it was where she came from and she did not believe in forgetting where you came from. She brought a small bag. Some provisions, some snacks for the children who ran between the stalls, some garden eggs for Mama Chioma because she knew the old woman loved them. The market received her the way markets receive people who have earned goodwill over years, warmly, loudly, with the particular affection that only comes from shared history. Adiz. Our daughter. Look at her. She came back. We heard the news. We are proud. Mama Chioma grabbed her with both arms and held on for a long moment, and Adiz let herself be held. She went from stall to stall, greeting people, laughing, listening. The same traders who had watched her be humiliated 2 weeks ago were now telling everyone who passed that they had always known she would rise. Adiz did not correct them. She understood that people rewrite their memories when reality surprises them. She bought some tomatoes she did not need from a young girl who reminded her of herself at 17, serious eyes, worn shoes, trying to appear unbothered. She paid twice the asking price. When the girl tried to make a change, Adise shook her head. "Keep it," she said. "And keep going. One morning the market will look different. I promise." In the weeks that followed, Madame Gloria became someone the market almost did not recognize. She came on Tuesdays. Not to buy, not to be seen, but to help. She brought cooked food for the traders who sat through lunch without eating. She helped old Baba Emeka carry his yams when his back was hurting. She sat with Mama Chioma and listened to stories she had been too proud to hear before. She was quieter now. The gold jewelry still came out for Sundays and special occasions. But in the market she came simply. And people noticed. Nobody said anything dramatic. Nobody made a speech about her transformation. That was not how the market worked. But old Mama Chioma said something, once, to the woman selling cloth beside her. "You see Gloria? She is learning." The cloth seller looked over. "Learning what?" Mama Chioma tied her wrapper more securely and settled back into her chair. "That the ground you stood on before the money is still the same ground. It doesn't change just because you do." Nobody celebrated Gloria's change loudly. But it was seen. And in a place like Eek Market, where memory is long and observation is sharp, being seen was enough. Slowly, the guards around her came down. And slowly, the market let her back in, not as Madame Gloria the wealthy, but as Gloria, Ngozi's sister, who had finally remembered herself. The opening ceremony for the store fell on a bright Saturday morning. Kenneth had kept it simple, a small gathering, some refreshments, a few words. He was not the kind of man who needed noise to mark something meaningful. But the market people came anyway. Mama Chioma, dressed in her finest wrapper. Old Baba Emeka with his walking stick. The young girl with the serious eyes who had sold Adise tomatoes. Half the traders from Eek Market, it seemed, had found their way to the main road by 9 o'clock. Madame Gloria came too. She stood at the back of the small crowd, quietly, without demanding space. When Kenneth invited Adise to say a few words, she stood in front of the glass door of the store, her name on the wall, and looked at the gathered faces. She had prepared nothing. She spoke from wherever her real voice lived. "I don't have a big speech," she said. "I just want to say one thing." She paused. "Never let anyone convince you that kindness is weakness. Never let anyone convince you that quiet is the same thing as small. And never, never stop doing good just because the people around you don't notice." She looked at Kenneth. "Kindness notices. Always." She looked at Gloria. Something passed between them, warm, unspoken, beginning. Then she smiled, and the crowd came forward, and the morning filled with the sound of people celebrating one of their own. Life does not always tie itself up neatly. Some stories end with dramatic reversals, great falls, loud reckonings, everything resolved in a single afternoon. But the truest stories, the ones worth telling across years and over fires, they end quietly. They end with people returning to their daily lives, but carrying something new inside them. Adise went to work every morning and brought the same care to the store that she had brought to her market stall. Her reputation grew slowly and solidly, the way real things grow, without announcements, without performance. Gloria visited the market on Tuesdays and kept her voice lower than it used to be. She was still herself, sharp, direct, proud in her bones, but she had learned to aim those qualities somewhere useful. Kenneth expanded his business and kept the store thriving. He did not ask for gratitude. He had already received the only payment that mattered, the knowledge that the bread given to him in his lowest hour had not gone to waste. And in the market, the story was told. Not always accurately. Details shifted the way market stories do. The basket became a feast, the single stranger became many. But the heart of it stayed true. A girl gave what little she had. Life remembered. And one morning, in front of everyone who had ever looked past her, the world looked back. The elders say it plainly and they have always said it right. What you plant in someone's hunger, you harvest in your own season. Never forget that. Thanks for watching. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments, where are you watching from?